Yeah, I think we should have been playing Those Were the Days here this morning. But fortunately, we have Congressman Joe Wilson on the line with us this morning. How you doing, Joe?
Well, Ann, it's great to be with you, and hey, it's great to be back in South Carolina, and what a beautiful place we all live, and gosh, it's even better to be away from Washington, D.C.
Absolutely it is, but you know, I think we just need to mention that our world has certainly changed, particularly when you look at the shooting that happened yesterday on USC's campus.
And that's such a tragedy. In fact, the professor who was killed is a constituent of mine, and it's just apparently what the media is reporting here. It was a personal situation within a family. Sadly,
it is such a shame, and yet we see this not only in our own backyard or in our own communities and across our nation.
We do, and it this week has been terrific. Something inspiring, though, Ann. On Wednesday, I had the opportunity to meet with King Abdullah of Jordan. And this was only hours after finding out that the Jordanian pilot had been burned alive by ISIL terrorists. And King Abdullah was focused. He indicated they would take immediate action, which they did, and which they're doing now. It's inspiring to have a world leader like King Abdullah. I look forward also to seeing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, another world leader who's focused on protecting his people. And it's a direct contrast to the current President of the United States, who has simply not been focused on the threats to the American people.
You know, Joe, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about. I think when a small country like Jordan is willing to go up against this, and yet, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the president is coming forth. I mean, yes, we're giving them, but I think, the hell with it. We should be out there just bombing the crap out of them and getting rid of them. This is horrible.
Well, Ann, it's so sad. They have announced clearly their plan. It's called Death to America, Death to Israel. Their creed gives it away, too. And that is that we value death more than you value life. And President Obama is not addressing this seriously. He clearly indicated earlier that he had no strategy, and you can tell that he has his enthusiasm, sincerely, Ann, is to raise campaign funds. That's where his enthusiasm is. That's where his focus is. It's not on protecting the American people.
I know, and do you have any idea, are we going to come on any stronger, Joe? I mean, the president just seems to be eerily silent, other than his comments that he made at the prayer breakfast, saying that we should not get on our, on our high horse?
Oh, and I was present there with my wife, and I wanted to throw up. And to equate something that happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, prior to the existence of the United States, to mass murder that's going on today. It was extremely revealing. He truly revealed himself as not connected to what's going on today, and focused on things that happened hundreds of years ago, which it's inconceivable that he does not recognize. And hey, you know, Ann, how sad is this? ISIS has on their website put up pictures of people holding up ISIS flags in front of the White House. I don't know if he realizes that means that he would not be president anymore.
Well, I just, what is it going to, you know, two questions. I know that you have just become chairman of the Emerging Threats House Armed Services panel. That
Yes.
has to give you a lot of insight into what's going on, Joe.
Well, a lot of sleepless nights, Ann. There are threats all over the world. and the American people are at risk. The people of Japan have found out that they're, with the beheadings that have occurred, they're at risk. We know, as I say, it's just so painfully clear that these people have plans for us called Death to America.
Well, on the other hand, are we doing anything, Joe?
The sad thing is it's half-hearted. The air attacks that have occurred on an average daily basis are frequently less than 10. And this, our prior air campaign would have nearly 1,000 attacks a day. And so it's just... And then in the meantime, the president is releasing and pardoning terrorists out of Guantanamo Bay to go back to conduct war against American citizens.
I know, and so we're even giving up any bargaining chips that we might have.
And putting people who are sworn to the death of every American, not just few, all of us. And the president is obsessed with pardoning these people and putting them back on the street.
Well, Joe, what can be done? I mean, I think we've identified the issue here. What can be done? Is there anything, or do we just have to sit here like sitting ducks?
Sadly, the good news is that we have a Congress that's trying to address this. So I'm just really grateful that with the new majority, Republican majority we have in the House of Representatives and enhanced majority in the U.S. Senate, we are making a difference.
But what can we do about keeping all Americans safe here, Joe? I mean, it just doesn't seem like doesn't he have the right to make whatever decision he wants on the military, or can he be overridden?
He can be overridden, and we are making every effort to override his sending terrorists back on the battlefield. And we're taking away the funding for his capability to do that. But he has violated the law. He was supposed to give notice of pardoning and release of terrorists, and he did not do that.
Well, it even sounds like, from what I'm reading in the news, that Hagel was not even on board on this.
The Secretary Hagel did not agree, and then another fact that the American people need to know is that the military, and I served 31 years, I've got 4 sons serving the military today, the military fully respects civilian oversight and control. And so Secretary Hagel let his position be known. Now the new incoming Secretary of Defense, Ash Carter, has said he disagrees with the president, which is amazing. I hope his nomination is not withdrawn. But very sadly, the American military is muzzled. They cannot say what they think because they are really loyal troops. And so when you hear references to the Pentagon, when you hear references to the military, that they say this, that, or the other thing, you need to be aware, the Department of Defense, that actually these are appointees of Mr. Obama who have a far left-wing view of the world.
Sure. I don't know what to say. I think it was particularly, it just looks like since January the world is on, it's a high speed. I mean, just, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, the France, the Charlie Hebdo event.
Yes.
And then we send Secretary Kerry over there with James Taylor. What kind of message did that send, Joe?
They're not serious. And they do not, President Obama and Secretary John Kerry, of all people, they're simply not serious. They don't see the danger to the American people. And I have a keen interest. I'm the co-chair of the French caucus, and I've worked very closely with the French embassy, and I met with the ambassador of France to let him know that the people of South Carolina, our neighbors across the river who are your listeners in Georgia, the people of America stand in solidarity with France, with the mass murders that occurred in Paris. But indeed, our president didn't even identify this as a terrorist act initially, and called it an act of violence. It just is a tragedy for the American people. We have a president who needs to change course. He needs to recognize that these people have every intent of death to America, death to Israel. And that's why I'm so proud again of Prime Minister Netanyahu. He's standing strong for his people. My opportunity on Wednesday to be with King Abdullah, how inspiring it was to see a leader who is standing up, protecting his people, and how sad it is. Yesterday, I was with the President of the United States, and I felt like a person speaking to us in inconceivable terms of things that occurred hundreds of years ago and getting them confused with what's going on today.
And yet, this wasn't an off-the-cuff comment. This was something that was a speech that was put together by his writers, by the people there, and it just, the analogies, I just can't believe that somebody didn't say, whoa, stop here.
Well, very sad, indeed. He was reading a teleprompter. But I sadly believe it's what he thinks. And somehow he is in constant apology mode for Christianity, for Western civilization, not just America, because the things that he is so critical of predates the United States. Hey, something very interesting from King Abdullah. The mass murders that are occurring within Islam, I had thought it was due to divisions in the Islamic religion from about 600 years ago. He said it was from 1,400 years ago. So for 1,400 years, the people of that religion have had a rationale which justifies killing each other.
Well, they certainly know how to carry a grudge then, I guess you could say.
Can you imagine? Hey, Ann, this predates you and me.
By quite a bit, I hope, Joe.
but how it was. I was there with Congresswoman Jackie Walorski of Indiana, and I noticed both of us wrote of all the different things that King Abdullah was saying. The fact that both of us wrote down immediately was that this was a division of 1,400 years ago.
I think, is that why some people think that, Joe, that we should not get involved because they'll just keep fighting and there's nothing we can do?
Well, no, this actually proves something, and that is they've been fighting for 1,400 years, but it hadn't come to the United States directly until 9/11. But and this is and I want to urge your listeners, if they have an opportunity, go to the 9/11 memorial in New York City. It is so inspiring, but it is also, again, very revealing. We're involved in this war now because of a declaration of war, a fatwa, against the United States in 1997. And this is clearly identified at the museum and at the memorial, and it goes through the different attacks on the United States directly, beginning in 1997. Actually, it started before that. But the fatwa, the religious war against Western civilization, not just America, it's against Western civilization, began in 1997. And I urge your listeners, if you're in New York City, go by the 9/11 memorial and plan on spending 3 hours. It's not something you just walk through. And then something very inspiring. I was there and saw the crushed watch of Todd Beamer. He is a hero to me. He was on Flight 93 at Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and he was the person that we could hear say, "Let's roll." That was the beginning to me of America fighting back and resisting. And we can resist, and then we can contain the level of violence overseas. And we have a choice. We can either contain the violence overseas, or they will come here.
Well, I can't get the image, Joe, of that they've been showing on TV of the little boy dressed in Muslim garb saying,
Yes.
"I want to be like that," after the burning of the Jordanian pilot.
No, it just breaks your heart to see the level of disinformation. And I'm so concerned, Ann, that our country was attacked from a cave in Afghanistan by Osama bin Laden on September 11, 2001. But now these terrorists control Mosul, a city of over 1 million people. And so there are capabilities there for attacks on the United States that are utterly inconceivable. And again, the president is simply focused on political fundraising to promote his political party. And I think that's just very sad.
It is. You know, and I have your map that you had sent me from what it was versus what it is today.
Yes.
I mean, what do you have to say about what's happening in Africa, Algeria, and that area? I mean, that is just exploded too.
Well, it's so sad that the president announced that Al-Qaeda was on the run. And on the in the very next week, I was presented that map that showed Al-Qaeda was spreading across North Africa, Central Africa, Middle East, and Central Asia. And on the map that you have, Boko Haram is clearly identified, and we know that they have mass murdered thousands of people across Nigeria, and they have kidnapped Christian girls from schools and raped them. They have taken them away from their families. They are forcing conversion to extreme Islam. And if they don't convert, they're immediately executed and killed. And the president was diminishing this as a movement that was on the run. And then he dismissed ISIL as JV. In the meantime, tens of thousands of people have been killed by what he has dismissed as being junior varsity.
Yeah, I hate to think when they bring in the varsity then, Joe.
Oh, it just breaks your heart, Ann, that we have a president that is so. And yesterday at the prayer breakfast, I mean, I was in distress being in his presence as he denounced Christianity and equated Christianity with ISIL. I just find that and historically so out of place. And then to equate Christianity with slavery. It was Christianity that ended slavery.
I don't know where he's headed, but I need to ask you another question. So with all this going on up there in Washington, D.C., what is the mood in the House? What is everybody talking about or saying they're going to do? Or
well, I'm excited, and working with your local member of Congress, Jeff Duncan, with the we've gained a new seat in Georgia. Some of your listeners have Rick Allen now as a member. We have the largest Republican majority since 1928. And so this week was classic. We passed legislation 2 days ago for the Small Business Reduction in Regulation Act. And so small businesses can't hire people because of the level of regulation. And I'm really grateful that Congress voted. It'll go to the Senate now. We also voted this week to repeal Obamacare. Everybody knows that Obamacare is destroying jobs. Small businesses can't hire people. Everywhere I go, I have young people tell me that the hours that they work have been reduced to 29 hours. Everywhere I go, people tell me the premiums are higher, the deductions are higher. People have lost their doctor, and so in the House of Representatives, we are really making positive legislation. And hey, this week was big too. It was stated that we would never get Keystone Pipeline through, but it did pass the U.S. Senate. Finally, it passed the House dozens of times, and these are jobs right in our community. MTU there in Graniteville makes engines that are used for the production or conversion of oil sands into petroleum. 300 to 500 jobs right in CSRA. Additionally, in Lexington, the tires that are made for use in Alberta, Canada, for the Keystone Pipeline are made by Michelin of Lexington.
Sure. Sure.
That's another 500 jobs, and the tires cost $60,000 each. They're 12 feet high.
Yeah.
But and so there is progress being made, but the president has said he's going to veto it.
And so, as I say, so the mood in the House is enthused.
It's enthused. It's positive. It's with shock and sadness about the disconnect with the president, but there's just hope that that we can pass legislation that makes sense, that helps the American people, that promotes jobs, as the president is destroying jobs at every turn. And with the new taxes that he proposed, clearly, as you read what he said of increasing taxes $2.1 trillion, the next two words should be destroying jobs. Because if you take money from the private sector and put it into the government, which is like a shell game, people will lose their jobs. And so we're going to be, and we'll be able to stop him on that. And then, in the meantime, he's making every effort to displace American jobs by bringing people in from all over the world under his amnesty program. And it will clearly result in American citizens losing jobs.
You're going to be able to stop that, Joe?
And we have passed legislation in the House already on that to block the amnesty and the funding. And sadly, that's now being filibustered in the U.S. Senate. But we're also filing lawsuits. And what the president did was unconstitutional. And it's very simple. Go to Article 1, Section 8, and it says naturalization is solely to be determined by Congress. And the president even said he couldn't do what he did. 22 times he said he couldn't do what he ultimately did. He even said he couldn't do it because to do it he would be an emperor.
And then he does it.
And then he did it.
Yeah.
And I say this sadly too, that if any president feels like they're an emperor, it's not just the current president. Any president can just act beyond the law.
Well, Joe, there's been some talk about impeach. There's been talk about some of the things. I guess I'm just curious is how will y'all be able to work with, work against, or what is talked about being done?
Well, the proper way is, as I've indicated, this week was classic, and that is pass positive legislation and get this to the American people. Additionally, sadly, we're going to have to file lawsuits too. But I'm really grateful. Somebody very special to me, our Attorney General, Alan Wilson, my number one son, has been very successful in suing the president over NLRB. Remember, they tried to block jobs in Charleston. But Governor Haley, Attorney General Alan Wilson fought back.
Sure.
And we were able, now we have 7,000 jobs in Charleston, which the president tried to block. And we also have suppliers that should be known. AGY in Aiken produces the interiors for the jetliners. Zeus Corporation of Aiken produces the tubing. The cable is produced by Prismium of Lexington. We've got thousands of jobs because we've been able to fight back against this president.
Sure. Joe, I wanted to ask you just a couple other questions. I hope you can stay with us just a few more minutes.
Yes.
Yes. What about Fort Jackson? This is a big issue down there.
Well, I'm really grateful that I've represented Fort Jackson now since I was elected to Congress in 2001. I'm a 31-year veteran of the Army. I've got 3 sons currently in the Army. 3 of our sons and myself have trained at Fort Jackson. I know what a wonderful facility it is, and all of us working together with the leadership of Governor Haley, with the leadership of Senator Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott, we're all making it clear that Fort Jackson is an excellent training facility. Hey, and look at it now.
Oh, wait a minute, Joe. This is WCRS right here in Greenwood. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, and what's exciting is that today is a classic day, and this weekend we have a temperate climate. People can train. How would you like to be training today in Pennsylvania or Massachusetts?
I know, Joe, but we're a red state, and I understand that there's a move afoot to cut Fort Jackson way back.
And sadly, you're right that politics enters into it. I was just telling you the facts. It's called meteorological facts. That we have a temperate climate with warm people, and so we're going to have to really fight on the facts, because the liberals who control this administration are going to be trying to shift facilities to states that are more favorable to them.
Well, I just think it would be a travesty if, and I understand they've got meetings and they've got this type of thing going, but it'd be a big travesty on Fort Jackson if something can't be done. That's such a dollar area to the whole state, not only to right down there in Columbia.
It really is an asset to all of South Carolina, and it's a terrific training facility. And I really sincerely believe that the facts as to why it should be maintained will override any level of politics.
And what about the military, with cutbacks to the military and everything? And the other thing I wanted to ask you about the sequester. I understand the president wants to do away with the sequester. So what will that do to the budget and overall? I mean, I know the sequester was not something that we wanted for the military, but right. Still it has tamped back the spending.
And that's where, with Congressman Tom Price, who's head of the Budget Committee from Georgia, we will be selective, and that is defense sequestration needs to be rolled back. But the other reductions in spending need to be kept in place. But sadly, Ann, what the president proposed in sequester, and it was his plan, was really an attack on the military. 50% of all of the reductions in spending were on one department, the Department of Defense. And when he came in, and then $487 billion, and through sequester, it would reduce spending another $600 billion for over $1 trillion, and the consequence is the smallest army since 1939, the smallest navy since 1916, and the smallest air force since it was created in 1947. The consequence is that we see chaos around the world.
Absolutely. And how can we defend ourselves, Joe? Can we defend ourselves?
Yeah, we can today, but the course that the president is putting us on is, sadly, indicating, first of all, we don't have resolve. And then the mixed signals he's giving indicate that, too. And by releasing the terrorists from Guantanamo Bay, it's really giving encouragement to persons around the world who seek death to America, death to Israel.
Yeah. It's a very scary situation, and it really bothers me that I think a lot of people don't realize how really scary it is out there. Now, what can people do that are concerned, though, Joe?
They need to send letters to their elected officials to work for a strong national defense. We already know this, and that is peace through strength. There's only one way to have peace. And hey, this is a special day now. And we need to recognize this is Ronald Reagan's birthday. He'd be 104, I believe.
Wow.
And but he proved a point. It's called peace through strength. And the criticism he got, it was so hateful as he built up our military. But he built up the military, and then he caused the evil empire of the Soviet Union to collapse. And we should be grateful. And the veterans who are listening now should know that there are more countries liberated today in freedom and democracy than in the history of the world. And so throughout Eastern Europe, Central Europe, countries that did not even exist, Slovakia, now are free countries, democracies, allies to the United States, members of NATO. I'm looking forward in 2 weeks, Ambassador Elena Papadarova of Bulgaria, which was a communist country, a satellite of the Soviet Union, now is a member of NATO. Ambassador Papadarova is going to be coming and speaking to the Columbia Rotary Club. She'll be speaking at Columbia College, Lexington Medical Center. Very likely she'll be making an appearance in Aiken. And so she herself is an indication of the success of the American veterans and military promoting freedom and democracy in the world.
Wow. Well, I want to end with something positive here. So I want to say You introduced some legislation to restore local control over education.
Yes.
Would you like to just talk about that real quick, and then I'll let you go?
I'm really excited that along with our new Superintendent of Education, Molly Spearman, and I know you have listeners in Saluda County, and it's very significant. Molly is the first constitutional officer ever elected as a statewide official in South Carolina from Saluda County. So I'm very grateful working with Molly as the new Republican Superintendent of Education. We had a joint press conference at the State House and with Kathy Menace of the Palmetto State Teachers Association and Dr. Venus Holland, School Superintendent of District 2 of Lexington, a longtime dear friend of mine. I was really grateful to introduce legislation that would provide for local control of schools. And so it was the Local Control of Education Act. I have nearly 50 co-sponsors, and it reiterates what we already know, and that is schools should be run by local elected school boards, not federal officials, bureaucrats. What works in one school district and one school is different from another school. And one size does not fit all. And sadly, we've seen the excess being committed by the Academic Standards Common Core. Teachers have been put in a circumstance of teaching tests rather than teaching the students. And I have faith in teachers. My wife is a teacher, and so I know our teachers make a difference. And I'm particularly grateful. My second son is an orthopedic surgeon, and my fourth son is a industrial engineer. And their ability in math and science, I give all credit to teachers, not to mom and dad.
Well, that's a statement, Joe, right there.
So I truly believe in local control and local involvement, and Ann, I just appreciate your program and a positive message, alerting the people and educating citizens on key issues, and I'm honored to be with you. So best wishes for a great weekend.
Thank you so much, Congressman Joe Wilson. Thanks for taking that extra time with it. We really appreciate it.
Okay, you're special. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.